The house felt different now, like it no longer belonged to her. Aisha stood in the hallway, her back against the cold wall. The voices from the living room were faint, distant, as if they were happening in another world. Her world had gone silent. Her eyes were still fixed on nothing, wide and empty. Tears slowly gathered, but they didn't fall right away. It was as if even her pain was too shocked to move. She tried to breathe, but her chest felt tight, heavy, broken. After a few seconds, her legs gave in, and she slowly slid down against the wall, sitting on the floor. Her hands trembled as she brought them to her face. "What just happened?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible. But there was no answer, only silence. Broken Heart, if you are feeling this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more emotional stories like this. Memories began to flash in her mind. Her wedding day. Armin smiling at her, promising forever, holding her hand like she was his entire world. And now, that same man had brought another woman into her home, pregnant with his child. Aisha let out a soft, painful laugh, one filled with disbelief more than humor. "How did I not see this?" she murmured, shaking her head. Tears finally spilled over, one after another, sliding down her cheeks. She didn't try to stop them anymore. There was no point. She looked around her room. The walls she had decorated, the home she had built with love, every corner filled with memories that now felt like lies. From outside, she could hear faint footsteps, a door closing, low voices. Life was moving on, as if her pain didn't matter, as if she didn't exist. Aisha slowly wiped her tears, her breathing still uneven. She pushed herself up from the floor, her body weak, but her step steady. She walked to the mirror. For a moment, she just stared at her reflection. Red eyes, pale face, broken expression. But behind that, something else was forming. Something quiet, something strong. "I won't cry in front of them," she whispered softly, her voice trembling but determined. Another tear slipped down, but this time, she wiped it away immediately. Not out of weakness, but control. She took a deep breath, straightened her posture, and turned toward the door. She didn't say a word. She didn't scream. She just walked away. But deep inside her silence, the storm was rising. And this time, it wouldn't stay quiet for long. Everything in the house had changed, but no one said it out loud. Morning light entered through the windows, soft and warm. Yet the house felt cold, like it had forgotten how to feel like home. Aisha stood in the kitchen, silently pouring tea. Her hands moved out of habit, not emotion. She didn't look up when she heard footsteps behind her. It was Armin, but he didn't even glance at her. Instead, his voice came from the living room. "Bring some water for her." Her fingers stopped for a second. Her eyes lowered, but she didn't respond. From the hallway, the sound of the mistress moving around could be heard. Light footsteps, opening drawers, arranging things, as if she already belonged there, as if she was the new owner of the house. Aisha slowly placed the teacup on the tray and walked out. In the living room, the mistress sat on the sofa, resting carefully, one hand on her belly. Armin was beside her, adjusting a pillow for her comfort. A gesture so small, but it cut Aisha deeper than anything else. No one looked at her, not even once. "Here," Aisha said softly, placing the water on the table. Her voice felt tuned and in her own home. The mistress gave a small nod. Armin still didn't turn. Aisha stood there for a moment longer, waiting for something. A glance, a word, an acknowledgement. Nothing came, so she stepped back slowly. "I'll go upstairs," she said quietly. Still no response. She climbed the stairs. She could hear faint laughter from the living room. Armin's voice, softer than she had heard in days, but never for her anymore. She stopped halfway on the stairs. Her hand gripped the railing tightly. Memories of their past flashed again. Armin holding her hand, calling her his everything, promising she was his home. Now, she was just a shadow walking through her own house. Upstairs, she stood in front of the mirror again. This time, she didn't cry, but her eyes were empty. Downstairs, the sound of life continued without her. And in that silence between floors, Aisha finally understood something painful. She was no longer part of their world.
She was just someone they passed by.
And for the first time, she started planning how to disappear from it completely. The house was full of laughter, but Aisha felt like she was disappearing inside it. Colorful decorations were put up in the living room. Sweet dishes on the table. Soft music playing in the background. Relatives had arrived, filling the house with voices, excitement, and celebration. Finally, a baby in the house, one aunt said happily, clapping her hands. Allah has blessed you, Armin, another relative added with a smile. Armin stood proudly beside the pregnant woman, his hand resting gently near her shoulder. The mistress smiled softly, enjoying the attention, as if she had always belonged here. Aisha stood slightly behind them all. No one introduced her properly. No one asked her to sit in front.
She was just there.
A shadow in her own home. Aisha bade a smile. Someone called out casually. It's a happy day. She froze for a second. Smile? Her fingers tightened around the edge of her dupatta.
Her throat felt dry.
Every word she wanted to say was trapped inside her chest. But she slowly lifted her lips. A smile. Small. Controlled.
Fake.
Yes, very happy, she said softly. Her voice didn't sound like hers. The relatives continued talking, laughing, touching the mistress's belly, blessing the unborn baby. Armin proudly answered their questions, completely ignoring Aisha's presence. She watched everything from a distance. Every laugh felt like a cut. Every blessing felt like a reminder. Every smile around her felt like a punishment. At one point, the mistress turned slightly and said, It's nice that everyone is so supportive. Aisha's smile didn't move, but her eyes darkened for a second. Supportive? She almost laughed. Almost. But instead, she simply nodded. Yes, very nice, she repeated. Armin didn't even look at her. Not once. The celebration continued, louder and brighter, while Aisha felt herself sinking deeper into silence. She walked toward the kitchen slowly, pretending to arrange plates, just to escape the noise. Her hands trembled as she placed a glass down. For a moment she stopped. The sound of laughter echoed behind her, but inside her mind, everything went quiet again. And in that quiet space, something broke completely. Not loudly, not visibly, but permanently. She looked down at her hands, then slowly clenched them, because she finally understood. This wasn't her home anymore. And soon, she wouldn't be part of their celebration at all. The house was louder than ever, but Aisha felt like she was standing inside a dream she couldn't wake up from. Congratulations. It's a boy. The doctor's words still echoed in everyone's minds as celebrations filled the house. The baby had arrived safely. Guests gathered again, this time for the naming ceremony, laughter mixing with music and applause. The mistress sat proudly on the sofa, holding the newborn wrapped in a soft blue blanket. Armin stood beside her, smiling like nothing in the world could go wrong. Guests surrounded them, offering gifts, blessings, and prayers. This child is truly lucky, someone said. What will you name him? Another asked excitedly. Armin looked at the baby with pride. We've decided his name will be Zion. Applause filled the room. And then everyone turned their eyes toward Aisha. She stood near the corner, silent, still. No one expected anything from her anymore. Not after everything. She was just there. Aisha, a relative called casually. Come bless the baby. A pause. All eyes shifted. Aisha looked up slowly. For a moment, she didn't move. Her face was unreadable, empty, like something far away was thinking instead of her. Then suddenly, she stepped forward. One step, then another. The music in the background felt softer now, almost distant. Armin frowned slightly. What are you doing? He muttered. But she didn't answer. Aisha reached the center of the room. And then she smiled. Not the fake smile from before. This one was different.
Calm.
Strange. Almost peaceful. Before anyone could understand what was happening, she slowly began to dance. Soft movements at first. Gentle steps. Her dupatta flowing slightly as she turned. The guests went silent, confused. She's dancing, someone whispered. The mistress tightened her grip on the baby. Armin stared at Aisha, his expression shifting from confusion to irritation. "Stop this," he said firmly. But Aisha didn't stop. Her eyes never left anyone. It was as if she was dancing for something no one else could see. The room grew heavier with silence. Even the music felt wrong now.
Her movements slowed, then paused.
Aisha stood still in the center of the room, breathing calmly, smiling faintly. And in that silence, she softly said, "Today is a beautiful day, isn't it?" No one answered, because something about her smile felt like the beginning of something no one in that room was ready for. The room felt frozen after her dance, like everyone was waiting for something they didn't understand yet. Aisha stood still in the center, her expression calm, too calm. The guests were silent, exchanging confused glances. Armin's jaw tightened as he stepped forward. "Aisha, what is this behavior?" he asked sharply. "Stop all this nonsense."
But she didn't react.
Instead, she slowly reached down and picked up a small box that had been placed near the corner of the room. Neatly wrapped, elegant, simple, but strangely out of place in the chaos of celebration. Everyone watched her. The mistress tightened her grip on the baby again, sensing something was wrong. Aisha walked forward, step by step.
No heri, no hesitation.
Until she stood right in front of Armin. For a moment, she looked at him, not with anger, not with tears, but with something unreadable, something final. "This is for you," she said softly. Armin frowned. "What is it?" Aisha didn't answer. She simply placed the gift in his hands. The room went completely silent. Even the baby's soft cries faded into the background. Armin stared at the box for a second, then slowly began to open it. The wrapping paper tore gently, one layer then another. Aisha didn't blink. The mistress leaned forward slightly, anxious. "What is inside?" she whispered. Finally, the box opened. And in that moment, Armin froze. His face went pale. All color drained from it as his eyes widened in shock. "No," he whispered under his breath. His hands trembled. Inside the box were papers, documents, and something that made his breath stop completely. Aisha stood watching him quietly. No emotion on her face. Just silence. The guests leaned in, trying to see, confusion spreading across the room like wildfire. The mistress stood up slightly. "Armin, what is it?" But Armin couldn't speak. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His eyes slowly lifted toward Aisha. And for the first time since he brought that woman into the house, he looked afraid. Aisha finally broke the silence. Softly, calmly, she said, "You wanted to start a new life, so I helped you see the truth about yours." The room felt like it stopped breathing. And Armin, still staring at the gift, realized one terrifying thing. This was not just a gift. It was the end of everything he thought he controlled. The silence in the room shattered the moment Armin's trembling hands dropped slightly. Everyone was staring at him, at the box, at the papers. Aisha stood still, watching him struggle to breathe. Armin finally pulled out the documents with shaking fingers. His eyes scanned the first page. Divorce papers. His face tightened. But that wasn't the worst part. More papers followed, printed chats, bank records, hotel bills, proof after proof of everything he had hidden. The room began to change. Whispers started. "What is this?" a guest asked. Aisha took a slow step forward. Her voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut through the room. "Read it carefully," she said. Armin's eyes moved faster now, panic rising in his chest. This is not what it looks like." But Aisha interrupted him. "No." She tilted her head slightly. "Then what is it?" The mistress stood up suddenly, confused and scared. "Armin, what is she talking about?" But Armin couldn't answer, because the truth was already spreading in front of everyone. Aisha turned toward the guests. Her voice grew stronger. "This man didn't just bring a pregnant woman into my house," she said slowly. "He had been lying for months." Gasps filled the room. Aisha continued. "Hotel meetings, secret calls, money transfers, promises of a new life, while I was still in this house believing I was his wife." The mistress stepped back slightly, her hand trembling. "No," she whispered. "You told me you were already separated. Armin's head snapped toward her. Stop. But it was too late. Aisha looked at the mistress now. Her eyes were calm, almost pitying. He didn't tell you the truth, she said softly. He never planned to. The room erupted in chaos. Voices overlapped. Questions.
Shock.
Anger. Armin tried to grab the papers. Enough. This is between us. But Aisha raised her hand, and for the first time he stopped. Her silence controlled the room more than his shouting ever could. She looked at him directly. You brought her into my home, she said. Now, I brought your truth into your world. Armin's face twisted, fear, shame, anger all mixing together. The mistress slowly sat back down, tears forming in her eyes. And the guests, they were no longer watching a celebration. They were watching a downfall. Aisha took one final step back. Her expression didn't change, but her last words echoed like a final strike. Now everyone knows who you really are. The room froze again, but this time, it wasn't silence. It was destruction waiting to happen. The room that once echoed with celebration now felt like a courtroom of silence and judgment. Armin stood frozen in the center, holding the crumpled papers in his hands. His breathing was uneven, his confidence gone. Every eye in the room was now heavy with disappointment and anger. This is shameful. An elder relative finally spoke. His voice was sharp. You brought another woman into your wife's home? Another voice followed. And lied to everyone? The respect Armin once carried started breaking piece by piece. He looked around desperately. Listen to me. This is not how it looks. But no one was listening anymore. A woman from the family stood up. Enough, Armin. You disrespected your wife, your home, and all of us. The words hit harder than any shout. Armin turned toward Aisha instinctively, but she was no longer the same woman he ignored for months. She stood calmly in the corner, watching everything unfold like it no longer belonged to her pain. The mistress slowly stood up, holding her baby tightly. Her hands were trembling now. Armin, she whispered, her voice breaking. You said I was your future. You said we would be a family. Armin didn't answer, because he had no answer left. She looked around the room. The guests were no longer looking at her with warmth. Only judgment. Only pity. Her eyes filled with tears. You used me, she said softly. I left everything for you, and you never even respected me. Armin stepped toward her. Stop talking, but she stepped back immediately. For the first time, she saw him clearly. Not a lover. Not a protector. Just a man trapped in his own lies. I have no place here, she whispered. Her voice cracked completely. A heavy silence followed. Even the baby's soft cries felt distant. The mistress turned away slowly, wiping her tears, realizing something painful. She was never part of his world. She was just a mistake he never planned to own. Armin's phone buzzed suddenly. One message after another. Family calls. Reputation collapsing. Business contacts withdrawing. Everything was falling apart. He looked helplessly at Aisha again. But she didn't move. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply watched him lose everything he once used to destroy her. And in that moment, karma didn't knock. It walked straight inside. The house behind her was no longer a home. It was a memory she refused to carry anymore. Aisha stood near the front door, holding a small suitcase in her hand. The same house that once held her dreams now echoed with chaos, regret, and broken voices behind her. But she didn't look back. Not even once. Inside, Armin's world was collapsing. The mistress's quiet crying. The guests leaving in disappointment. The truth echoing through every wall. But none of it reached her anymore. It belonged to yesterday. Aisha slowly adjusted her dupatta, her breathing steady. Her face no longer carried tears, only calmness. A strange peace that came after surviving too much pain. For a moment, she paused at the doorway. The wind outside touched her face softly. She closed her eyes and remembered everything, the love she gave, the trust she broke, the silence she endured. Then she whispered softly to herself, I stayed too long where I was never chosen. A faint smile touched her lips, not of sadness, but acceptance. Behind her, Footsteps rushed inside the house. Voices calling her name. Armin shouting something, desperate now.
Aisha.
Wait. But she didn't turn. Not anymore. She stepped outside. The sunlight hit her face gently, warm and real, like life finally opening a door for her again. Her first step away felt heavy, but the second felt lighter. And the third, almost free. She walked down the street slowly, suitcase in hand, as the noise of the past faded behind her. For the first time in a long time, there was no husband to answer to. No mistress to compare herself with. No lies to survive. Only herself. Aisha stopped under a quiet tree by the road. She looked up at the sky. It was clear, peaceful, endless. She took a deep breath and whispered,
Now.
I begin. A soft breeze moved past her, as if the world itself was agreeing. But far behind her, the house remained alive with chaos and Armin standing in silence, finally realizing one truth too late. The woman he broke was the only one who ever truly stood by him, and now she was gone.